Think positive.
Welcome back to the Ghoul Ambrose podcast. GA for short. I'm your host, Prince. This is a space for inner work, self-improvement, self-discovery, mindset, accountability, integrity, reflection, and personal development. This podcast is built for growth, for honesty, and for becoming a better version of yourself, one day at a time. New episodes drop every Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Today's episode is called Stillness. It's harder to stand still than to try to keep everything in motion. Why is that so? I need everything to run through me, function through me. Or maybe I just need to be still. Somewhere along the way, movement starts feeling safer than stillness. As long as something is happening, it feels like something is being done about it. A new thought can replace the old one. A new task can replace the last one. The next thing can keep the previous thing from sitting too long. Nothing has to stay in one place. Everything can keep moving through. Maybe that sounds normal. Maybe it is. But there's a difference between moving because something needs to move and moving because stopping feels uncomfortable. The motion itself isn't always the problem. It's the inability to leave anything alone. A thought has to be examined. A feeling has to be understood. A situation has to be figured out. Until eventually, the question becomes less about what needs to happen. Constant motion can create the illusion that everything is under control. As long as something is being done, it can feel like progress is happening. But movement has a cost. When it never gets a chance to end, attention gets divided, energy gets spent, one thing gets pushed forward before the last thing has even settled. Eventually, the distance between one thought and the next becomes smaller. Everything starts blending together. A moment doesn't get enough time to exist before another one takes over. That can make even good things feel exhausting. Not because they're bad, not because they aren't worth doing. There's just never enough time to actually experience them before something else needs attention. Constant motion can also create a strange kind of impatience. Waiting starts feeling like wasted time. Silence feels unproductive. And the more everything gets pushed forward, the harder it becomes to recognize when something actually needs to stop. Maybe that's the real cost. Not simply being tired, losing the ability to recognize when enough is enough. And eventually, something has to interrupt that cycle. The body has its own way of making a point. Strength fades, energy drops, the mind becomes slower. Something that normally feels easy suddenly requires effort. At that point, pushing harder doesn't solve much. A forced pause can feel frustrating because it wasn't part of the plan. Still, the interruption might reveal something important. Maybe the pace had already become unstable. Maybe exhaustion had been ignored for too long. Rest wasn't the problem. Maybe the refusal to rest was. That distinction matters. Stopping doesn't automatically mean weakness. A person can stop because they have nothing left. A person can also stop because they understand that continuing would cost more than it gives. Knowing the difference takes awareness. That awareness is difficult to develop when everything is happening at once. Quiet makes room for it. Quiet changes what can be heard. Thoughts that were buried underneath everything else become clearer. Certain emotions become easier to recognize. Questions that were constantly pushed aside start coming back, not necessarily with answers, just with presence. Sometimes clarity isn't found by searching harder. It arrives after the search stops. The quiet doesn't necessarily create the answer. It allows the answer to be heard if it arrives. Stillness isn't always the answer. Some situations need to be met head on. A decision might require a clear choice. A problem might need immediate attention. There are moments when hesitation only makes things harder. Then again, forcing an outcome can create its own problems. The difference isn't always obvious. Sometimes the right response becomes clear through the circumstances themselves. A little restraint can't prevent unnecessary damage. A little courage can't prevent unnecessary delay. Neither approach carries the answer by itself. Context matters. What's happening matters. And so does recognizing what the situation is asking for. Stillness has value, but it also has a time to step aside. Is it so bad to just be still for a moment? Would you lose momentum? Hang on, I'll give it a try. I hope you found something worth taking with you today. Maybe a new perspective, maybe a moment to pause and reflect. Thank you for being here and sharing this space with me. Your presence matters. If this resonated with you, share it with someone you care about because growth spreads through connection. I'll see you next time. Take care of yourself, stay grounded, and as always, be safe.